Jason. I'm an addict.
Jason.
Just want to welcome everybody here. Thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate everybody. My clean date is October 27th, 2018. I got involved in NA recovery back in April of 2017. And that being said, you'll hear the rest. So I was born September 16th, 1985. When I was first born, my biological parents and I and my brother, we moved to Florida. And we lived in Florida for about 2 years. And my sister was born. Some things happened down in Florida, I guess, where they decided they were going to move back to Indiana. And my father at the time told my real mother that that was probably a bad idea, that there was nothing for him in Indiana, you know, things wouldn't last. So when they moved back to Indiana shortly after, they was at a friend's place, found an abandoned barn over by their friend's house, and they found a duffel bag of marijuana. Well, they were hurting for cash for moving back, and so one of their friends said, "Oh, you know, I know this guy, I'll buy it." And so they got a hold of him, they met up. Long story short, they got turned in to the cops. Well, they got arrested in Marshall County, they went to jail. And so my grandparents on my mother's side took my brother and my sister. My grandparents on my dad's side took myself. And so while my parents were in jail, back and forth to Florida, my dad took the rap. My mom was able to get out. And shortly after, my dad got papers that my mom was giving me up for adoption to my grandparents. And in that period, my mom had served my father with divorce papers, left him, you know, and so forth. And so he spent his time in jail. I spent my time growing up with my grandparents on my father's side. So from the age of 2 until about age of 14, give or take, that's who I knew as my mom and dad, or my grandparents. You know, still to this day, it's always going to be my mom and dad. So you know, things were really rough. I didn't grow up with my brother and sister. You know, I didn't really know them until I got to be about 16 years old. And so to go back a little bit, you know, I was raised not being around drugs. I wasn't raised around alcohol. You know, I actually grew up in a really good home. And I went to a Christian academy my whole life, from the first day of school until I graduated. And at the age of 12, I decided, you know, with some friends from school that I had to try marijuana. And so that's kind of where my addiction started. Late years of 12, early 13, I started dealing marijuana. And then it just started progressing. And, you know, I'd dibble dabble with other things, pills and whatever. By the age of 13, I tried meth for the first time. And, you know, I really wasn't sure about it. You know, I was really young. I wasn't really prepared for the effects of it, so to speak. You know, so I really didn't continue with it very much. You know, I just dibble dabbled in it off and on through the first couple of years of being a teenager. And by the age of 15, I was doing cocaine, doing meth all the time. By the age of 16, my brother and I got united, and our thing was party. That's how we became friends. You know, that's all we did. When we got together, we drank, smoked weed, we took pills, we snorted 8 balls and 8 balls of cocaine. I mean, every day. And so that's how our relationship continued for years. And so by the age of 18, I'd had my first son, is here today. Uh, those were really rough times. I wasn't prepared to be a father. I didn't know how to be a father. I was still trying to learn to be an adult. I moved out when I finished school. I was only 17. I moved out on my own. So I was rushed into being an adult, had a child, which really rushed me into trying to be an adult, and I really didn't know how. And so that made for a very rough relationship with his mother, because all I wanted to do was party, all I wanted to do was drugs, all I wanted to do was sell drugs. I was constantly missing work, late for work, making excuses for, why I was supposedly still at work, in all logical sense. I was out getting high, selling drugs, delivering drugs to different people, and so there was, we had split up, and so we started, visitation, every other weekend, and that was really rough for me because as it was for all the years, up until this couple years ago, it was still really rough to have visitation because that cut into my partying time, cut into my dealing drugs and, so forth. So there was one incident when it was my weekend to have him, and I was living back home again with my parents. I didn't have anywhere else to go. And a guy that, supplied me with my drugs at the time to deal for him, to sell for him, needed somebody to go up north to pick up his supply. And I had my son that weekend. So I asked my mom, I was like, hey, I gotta go somewhere, take a guy somewhere, can you watch my son? She's like, no, it's your weekend, you need to have your son. So, like a selfish, horrible parent, I said, well, he's just a baby, he don't know. So I took my child with me, and another guy, that I'd take up there that had the connection. So we drive an hour and a half up north, to go pick up these drugs, and the whole time, I have my 1-year-old son in the back seat, in a car seat, and act like, it was just normal everyday thing. And we stayed up there tonight because, got paranoid, got high, so, I ain't driving all the way back to Rochester, 2 o'clock in the morning with an ounce of cocaine on me. And so the whole time, taking care of him, I'm still trying to be a parent while I'm getting high at the same time and trying to hide it from him, so, I'm not letting him around it, so to speak. And so I come back, my mom, asked me, where you been all night? I just made up some story, and hadn't been asleep, all night, all wired and jittery. So, that's where part of being a horrible parent, I think, really started, was when I involved my 1-year-old son. And so after that, anytime, I had him, I always made an excuse. I'd say, I gotta work. Mom would watch Caleb for me, and it worked. She would watch him, I'm not sure if she ever really knew what I was actually doing or not, but, I'd say I was going to work and I wouldn't come home till midnight, and, I did that for a long time, and then, it just got to the point where, his mom just decided, hey, you're not gonna get him anymore like that, you can have him for a couple hours here and there, and that worked for a little while, and then after a while, it's just like, whatever, if I can't spend the weekend with him like one, and in all logic, it wouldn't matter if I had him for the whole weekend, I wouldn't spend time with him anyway, because I'd have been too busy getting home. And, so, in the meantime, I'd had another son, with another woman, and, kind of the same relationship, toxic relationship from the start, and, things were off and on, off and on, and, same thing there. I was always in and out of jail, in and out of both boys' life at the time, And so, you know, we got married and we had moved, you know, I went on the run, I violated my probation, and, I went on the run, so we moved down to Coconut, got a job down that way, real good job, I bought a house, I went contract, moved down there. At that time, I'd had my third child. And so we were living down there for a while. I got laid off from that job at the end of the season because it was kind of a seasonal type job, the factory was. And so I took on the next job that I could at the time, which was nowhere near the good job that I had. And I started using again. And I came home one day from work, my house was empty, fridge was empty, my cupboard was empty. I mean, I had nothing, I had a bed. And, you know, I freaked out, it was high, didn't know what was going on, started breaking whatever was left in the house. And, you know, my father, you know, that had raised me, had passed away like 6 months prior. And, so, you know, I didn't have anybody to really turn to, you know, that could talk to me the way I was used to somebody being there to talk to. And, so at the time, I had a handgun, I had one bullet in my handgun. That's all I had, didn't have any more bullets. It was always set on top of my kitchen cabinet, so I grabbed my gun. I had a bottle of liquor at the time, downed it, sat down on my chair. I pulled the trigger, it went off, and within like, it seemed like forever, you know, I opened my eyes and, you know, I'm still there, you know, I was like, what the hell, you know, and I'm looking around, feeling my head, no blood, no nothing. And, so I pulled back the slide and the bullet lodged in the chamber. And, you know, I don't know if it was I was upset or I was just furious that, you know, I was trying to just end things, you know, just because I thought that was the easiest route. And, so I threw the gun down and went and laid down. And, my biological father lives in Peru, and he came to my house because I wasn't answering the phone. And see, my front door was kicked off the hinges. Seeing that my front door was kicked off the hinges out in the front yard on the sidewalk, you know, so he already knew things weren't good in the house. The whole house was dark. He come in, started turning on lights, and see my handgun sitting on the table. And he started freaking out. He come in, see me laying on the bed, and thought I was gone. And he wakes me up. You know, I'm pissed off. You know, drunk. You know, high. And so he makes me get up. He goes and gets coffee. And, you know, goes get some food. Comes back. You know, and he sat with me until the next day. And so, you know, the whole time, you know, I'm still on the run. And within about 2 weeks, I was traveling back and forth every day to Rochester to pick up drugs. And my last trip to Rochester, got an old friend of mine, you know, at the time, him and I walked out of the house, and the neighbor lady next door, her son was a cop, and always called him whenever there was traffic at that house, because there was no drugs. And so we pull out, and within 2 blocks we get pulled over, and you know, we're throwing drugs and paraphernalia and stuff out the window and all this crap. And so he looks in the car, calls us by first name, pulls us out, handcuffs us, sets us in the middle of the street. And you know, the whole time I'm like, shit, you know, I got warrants in Placer County, I got warrants out of Marshall County, I don't have a license. You know, there's still paraphernalia in the car. There's a bag of dope sitting next to the tire at the cop car, and you know, it's just like, man, it's a horrible deal. And so they're running our names, you know, and you know, my friend, he's on probation, so automatically, you know, he's already in trouble too. They find the paraphernalia, comes back on when they're running my name. You know, I got 2 active warrants, and one was for probation violation, one was for failure to appear in Marshall County, because, you know, I figured, well, you know, they didn't go to court for my probation violation, I'm sure they ain't gonna go to court in Marshall County, because one of them is gonna arrest me either way, so, you know, I'll just dip out. And so I go to jail, Fulton County, bond out there, wait for Placer County to come get me. They come get me. I go there, go to court, sentence me the same day that I went to court, in a week, the 8 months, for probation time. So while I'm in there, I decided, alright, this is it, I'm gonna try to do things right. I get approved for the work release program there. Everything works out. I get my Marshall County time. I get sentenced for that. I get transferred to Placer County, so I can just stay there, do work release. The whole time, I did 8 months work release in Placer County. Done excellent, no violations, no ifs or nothing, I did everything like I was supposed to. I got out, said, I'm gonna stay on the straight path. Within 8 hours of being released that morning, I had my mom pick me up. We went to Kokomo. She was staying in my house that I was buying, and grabbed some random clothes of mine. I said, take me to Rochester to meet one of my buddies. I was like, all right. She said, how long you gonna be gone? I was like, I'll just be gone for a couple nights, just go hang out. I said, all right. So within 8 hours of meeting up with him, I was getting high. And within 24 hours, I was out in the middle of the woods cooking meth. So I went from 8 months of deciding that this is how I'm going to live my life now. I gotta start being an adult. I gotta straighten up. This is the way I need to be. I can't keep messing up. To right back at what I was doing. 5 months to the day, I left North Justin, staying there. I went to go deliver some drugs to a guy while he was on lunch break, and went and met him up, and I was getting ready to head out of town. And one of my other friends that had been with me the whole night, doing the same thing that I was doing all night, cooking meth, calls me up, says, hey, you still in town? I'm like, yeah, I'm still in town. So I'm heading out of town. I was like, I got probation, Fulton County, in a few hours I gotta go back to Justin, take a shower, get cleaned up, because I don't smell the greatest. And he's like, well, stop by real quick, stop by my girlfriend's house, let's get out. I'm like, man, we've been getting high all night and all morning. I'm like, all right, whatever, real quick. So turned around, went back into town, pulled up in the driveway, went upstairs, and so we were sitting up there in his girlfriend's bedroom, we're getting high, and I don't even think I had smoked a whole cigarette, and all of a sudden 3 cops come busting in the door, running up the stairs, and I'm freaking out loud, shit, throwing shit in the closets, he's throwing shit under the mattress, and it all was about his girlfriend's brother didn't like him and knew what we were up to, so he called the cops to have us removed from the house, which was cool with me, all right, I'll leave, no problem, come back and get my dope later. So there's the cops telling us, you guys that don't live here need to leave, let's be here. All right, no problem, no big deal, I'll see you guys later. I wasn't trying to have no discussion about it, and go to head down the stairs, like, oh, well, we need your IDs and all this and that. Shit, you guys just told us to leave, now you want us to stay. So I start running IDs. The other cop says, we're searching the bedroom you just came out of. My buddy starts getting irate, because he's hot-headed. And it all escalated. It all came down to they went in, searched the bedroom, found all the drugs. He motioned out the door to the other 4 cops that showed up in the meantime, said arrest them all, take them all to jail. So we all get taken to jail, never told what we were arrested for. We all knew what we was arrested for. And we're sitting in holding cells for 8 hours. Nobody knew our charges at the jail. Nobody could book us in, do nothing. Nobody could give us a phone call, anything. Because none of them knew at the jail what we were being booked for. And 8 hours go by, they started booking us all in. And by 10th hour, there was a detective there pulling one by one out of the holding cells, interrogating. I went in, I said, lawyer. He said, you want a lawyer? I said, yeah, lawyer. I ain't got nothing to say to you. Take me back to myself so I go back to sleep. Pull my buddy out. Same thing for him, And so by the time we got served our you know, probable cause papers, you know, a couple days later, our bonds went from $500 to $50,000 cash. You know, and it's holy shit. We ain't going nowhere, you know. And so, you know, we sat in jail, and his girlfriend gets out on bond reduction. He goes for transport to Fulton County for court, never comes back. He comes back to the jail like 2 weeks later, bond reduction never made it back to the block and left, you know. What the freaking hell, man? Son of a bitches got me. You know, I sat there for almost 4 months before I ever seen the judge or my lawyer. And we went in, my lawyer was trying to get me to sign a plea agreement for, you know, 1.5 year probation and time served. Man, screw that, you know. I was like, most you can give me is a 2-2-1 on my charges. I was like, bring that to me, I'll sign it, send me proof. You know, so we argued for about 2 weeks. And finally he comes to jail, tries to offer me probation again, told him absolutely not. He reaches in a briefcase, pulls out a plea agreement for 1 year, served 6 months. I was 3 weeks away from completing my sentence at that time. You know, I was pissed. I'm like, you son of a bitch, you know, you've been trying to get me for 1.5 year probation this whole time. You know, and I've been offering you a 2-2-1, here you got a year due 6 months. I'll be out in 3 weeks. So, you know, I signed that, I get out. During that period, you know, I'd gotten divorced, you know, and so I get out, and within a couple weeks, for whatever reason, my ex-wife and I, like, kind of hashed things out, whatever, you know. Then we didn't, you know. Then I went on a crazy spell, you know. And so then, within a couple months, for whatever reason, I did the dumbest thing in the world. I got remarried to the same woman again. And that was probably like, you know, that's like buying your own used car back. You know, you just don't do that. And so we decided to move to Florida. Oh, it'll be a better life. We'll start over, start fresh. So we moved to Florida. I get a job as an iron worker, you know, doing good. The only things I was doing, which, you know, still wasn't good, you know, was drinking. You know, but I wasn't doing drugs or nothing like that, so I took it. Nope. And within 7 months of living in Florida, my 2 youngest kids had moved down there, and then all of a sudden moved back to Indiana without my knowledge. And she had left for work, I left for work, I come home for work, and that was the last time I ever saw her. Thank God. You know, I couldn't be happier about that, to be honest. And so within a month, I decided, I told my biological father and my stepmother that, I'm like, you know, I'll move back to Indiana. You know, it costs too much to live down here, it's hotter than shit down here, you know, it's horrible here. So, my father kept begging me, he's like, don't move back. He's like, you move back, you're gonna get right back with the same people you were running with before you moved down here, and you'll be right back in jail, or worse. I was like, no, I'll be fine, you know, I've been clean this whole time I've been down here, I can stay clean when I get home. So I moved back to Indiana, right back into another toxic relationship, probably the most toxic one that I've ever been in my life. And within a month of being back in Indiana, I was back to getting high, back to cooking meth. I mean, I was back to dealing. I mean, it was just the same cycle all over again. You know, it was like the definition of insanity. And you know, I was hiding it, then I get caught. I hide it, I get caught. You know, long story short, you know, that relationship turned out to be the worst thing ever in my life. And other than aside from being an addict, you know, but that relationship cost me 3 years of horrible living, 7 open cases, well, I'd say 4 open cases, and then the other 3 was all my own doing. But you know, so I was in and out of jail for about almost a 2-year period. I racked up 7 open cases in Blasphemy County. The reason for all that was because I was an addict. I was selfish. I didn't care about anybody in the world but myself. All they cared about was the next high, the next dollar, and everything. You know, I went from being addicted to heroin all of a sudden to, you know, doing that for like 6 months straight, you know, just strung out on heroin every day, all day long, you know, I couldn't function without it. And, a person very close to me went and got help for heroin addiction, came out, you know, off of heroin, and was begging me to get help, you know. I was like, no, I'm fine, you know, no big deal. Well, then my heroin connection got arrested, so there went my connection, you know, so for about a week I was just dying sick, you know. And I tried Suboxone, that made me even sicker, so I was like, you know, next best thing. I went and got some meth, you know, got me off of heroin. But then I got addicted again to meth. And for about a 2-year period, that's all I did every single day. From the time I woke up in the morning until the time I made myself go to sleep every night was get high all day long. And I let it control my life. You know, I used every excuse in the book for why I was using it. At that point in time, I was working for a contractor 5 days a week. I was bartending part-time 5 days a week. And then I was also had started up, was in the middle of starting up my own construction business myself. So I used that excuse that I had all 3 of these jobs going on at the same time in my life, that I needed to do this to be able to function and do all that. So it went from being an excuse to it was just a necessity every day. I couldn't function without waking up and getting high. I got high before I ever smoked my first cigarette, before I ever drank my first sip of coffee. And so that went on, like I said, for close to 2 years. And you know, people kept telling me, you know, even my dealer kept telling me, hey man, you know, you're getting some heat on you. You know, I'm hearing things, you know, people were saying, you know, you're being watched. I'm like, no, you know, screw that. I've been under investigation before, you know, never could get you, you know, whatever, I'm better than that. And one day, I had moved out of the house I was living in, and I was just kind of staying in my friend's driveway, staying in the woods in my truck, just staying forever, you know. And I was running my own construction business full time, so I had a lot of spare time that I could make for myself to get high whenever I wanted, drop off dope to people whenever I wanted, you know. Because I was my own boss, I didn't have rules. And so I was at the storage unit where I kept all my tools and stuff and all my belongings, and I was changing tools out of my truck that I didn't need that day and putting tools that I did need that day for a job. And at the back of one of the storage units was a Durango sitting there with a guy with his window halfway rolled down taking pictures as I was walking out of the storage unit. And I just looked, walked back in, I turned around, came back out and just smiled, reached my pocket, grabbed my phone, started being a smart ass, you know, copying, taking pictures back. He hurried up, took off. That afternoon, I went to the storage unit, grabbed my duffel bag that had my handgun in it, everything that I needed, you know, to supply people drugs, had, you know, everything, drugs, everything, paraphernalia, scales, all that. Threw it in my truck, you know, and I was gonna go to the gas station and get gas for the lawnmower, and I didn't make it a block away from that storage unit, and a cop was coming right at me. I was just like, ah, shit. It was too late by then, you know, I couldn't just act like it was me. Every cop in Placer County had a picture of me in their cop car. And they pulled me over after, you know, I took them on a scenic route around the block, you know. And I got this really dumb idea at the time as I was taking them on a cruise around the block, and I'm lighting up a cigarette, you know. Well, it was going to be my last cigarette one way or another, so I'm taking my time smoking a cigarette. Well, I look over and I see my bag sitting on the seat. And I remember what all was in my bag. Then I remember there was a handgun with 2 clips in my bag, and the handgun happened to be loaded. Well, this is going to end one way or a different way, you know. And I don't see it ending really good either way it goes. So I reached in the bag, grabbed out my handgun, set it on my lap. I stopped at the stop sign. I flicked my cigarette out the window, lit another one. And at that point in time, what was running through my head was, I looked in the mirror, and there was only 2 dead bodies in the car. And I thought to myself, it's like, I have 2 magazines with 2 cops. I could unload one magazine, jump back in the truck before they even knew what actually happened, and I could get down the road with them. And that was what was going through my mind at the time. You know, I was just that far gone, just that selfish, and just didn't give a shit about nobody. You know, it didn't matter to me if they had kids and a family at home. I didn't care. And so I went to the next stop sign, and I went to put the truck in park and started to grab the door handle, and I stopped. I was like, fuck, man, I'm going to jail. That's all there is to it. I'm not gonna do this. So I threw the gun back in the bag, pushed it off on the floor, threw my sweatshirt on it, you know, like it was outside out of mind, like nobody would ever see it. You know, that's how I think. Well, you know, it's on the floor, it's dirt over top of it. Who's gonna see that and think anything's under there? So I hurry up, I pull out, and I pull up in front of my shop where I was kind of renting, you know, per se. And I jump out of the truck, close the door, I'm like, you guys got me. And they're like, what are you doing driving? You know you ain't supposed to. I was like, I know. I was like, I was just gonna get gas. They're like, alright. I was like, just take me to jail. I already know the routine, you know. Whatever. Book me on, drive on suspended, big deal, I'll be out in an hour. And they're like, well, they cuffed me. I said, well, we're gonna search your truck. I said, no you're not. They said, yeah, we are. I was like, you don't have any reason to search the truck. I wasn't in the truck. I was outside the truck when you arrested me. You didn't ask me to get out of the truck. I was like, you don't have any probable cause. They're like, yeah, we do. You're under arrest for driving while suspended. That's all the probable cause we need. And you're a known drug dealer. Well, whatever, man. I was like, there ain't nothing in there. So they put me in the cop car, you know, I'm sitting there, you know. And one cop's standing there next to me, the other cop's searching around in the truck, pulls that bag up, unzips it, jumps out of the truck, comes running over. He's like, is there a meth lab in the truck? I was like, what, man? Are you freaking crazy? I was like, you really think I would have stopped? I was like, you would have smelled it before you even got to my truck anyway. I was like, I sure as hell wouldn't have stopped. He's like, what is in the truck? I was like, I don't know what's in the truck. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, what's in that bag? I was like, what bag? He's like, that one that was on your floorboard. I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, man, the guy that I hired for the day to help me on some drywall, I was like, I had a bag with him. When I picked him up, I dropped him off. He left his bag in there, and I was like, I just hadn't made it back to him to drop it off to him. They're like, oh, okay. So the cop goes back, searches through the bag, you know, finds the drugs, finds the scales, paraphernalia, and reaches in, comes walking up with the bag, and a handgun in his hand. He's like, whose handgun is this? I was like, oh, beat the shit out of me. I was like, didn't know there was a handgun in there. He's like, it was in your bag. And I was like, ain't my bag. He's like, what's the guy's name? I was like, I don't freaking know. I was like, I paid him cash. I was like, I don't ask names. You know, I was like, I just told him, hey bud. You know, that was it. And so they take me to jail, you know, book me in. They ain't have no bond. You know, I'm calling everybody.